for another episode of Creating Health and Wealth for Retirement. This is Rick Collins. He's here to help you create wealth.
And this is Mark Delaney. He's going to help you with your health so you can enjoy moving and living longer.
Rick, do you have any idea what we're going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about trade-offs, having fun now versus having fun later. So that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to see where it leads us.
And the beautiful thing is that whether or not you have fun now or build a future is based on your focus. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today, Rick, is how people focus, what they focus on, and how that actually helps them be able to create the life that they truly want to live versus simply enjoying life today.
Yeah, it's important to realize that there are trade-offs. People have to make decisions about what they want. They can have instant gratification now, or they can have a better life for decades in the future, whether it's health or wealth or money or relationships or whatever. The instantaneous things generally wear out, they don't last, and people are left empty, and then they get bitter and jaded about why their life is the way it is. Well, it's because you made less than stellar choices along the way and went for the microwave instead of the crock pot gratification.
And it's funny because the more you do that today, the more you want that, some more of that tomorrow and the next day. And your whole life just becomes living for this moment and nothing towards building a future. And that's it's a fun way to live, but at some point in the future, all of those bills come due. And so,
Speaking of bills, it's crazy. Just the other day, I saw, 0% interest on car loans. So you can go get a brand new car, 0% interest, and they'll go out 84 months. That's 7 years. Well, after 5 years, the car you're still paying for, even if you've paid 0% interest, it's worn out and you got to start over. So you never get off that treadmill. It just keeps going and going and going. And you stay in debt and you don't get ahead because you're buying shiny new things instead of, paying for something completely, using it till it dies, and then getting new, because we get distracted by the shiny object syndrome. We've got to have the latest and greatest iPhone or the latest and greatest car or the 4K TV that you just have to have right now, even though you have to use a credit card to buy it. It's that instant gratification that, while it feels good in the moment, 20 years from now, you're going to wish you'd done things differently.
And the same thing is true with food. If you think about it, if I am eating the fun, salty, sugary, highly processed, inexpensive, great tasting foods without any thought to how that's going to affect me years down the line, then I'm going to end up unhealthy. And if I live that stagnant lifestyle watching all of those streaming networks that are out there for me to just sit and gorge out on television programs. So it's interesting to me. Just a real quick question. What is your favorite TV show, TV series of all time, if you have one?
Although they've jumped the shark this season, I love Yellowstone because it's Wild West in a modern day. So Kevin Costner left, and they've done some weird things this season. It's the last season, but I've enjoyed it. But my favorite all time, I would have to say, is Breaking Bad.
That's funny because that's one of mine also. That and Game of Thrones. But my actual favorite TV show program is called NYPD Blue with Sipowicz, and that was just a phenomenal show from the 1990s. But here's the deal. I watched Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, and NYPD Blue. And you know how much that helped me today? Do you know how much that improves my life today? Zero. And so what we're trying to get you to understand is that, and I used this concept in the past, 10 minutes versus a lifetime. Now, right now, there are more networks, streaming networks, TV channels than ever before. And somebody's got to be watching all those channels because people pay to advertise on them. And I'm simply saying that no matter how great a TV show is, it won't matter to you a year from now. It might not matter a month from now.
It's amazing we get to the point, I can waste hours just scrolling on my phone. Starting off, it was supposed to be, I'm just going to glance at it 5 minutes, take a break. And then suddenly 3 hours later, I didn't go to the gym. I didn't work on my business. I didn't do anything healthy. I had great plans for my 4-day weekend. I made it to the gym once, but it's easy to get distracted uh, because it feels good and it wastes time and it's not beneficial long term.
Yeah, and even worse, it's probably destructive long term because what ends up happening is you watch a 30-minute TV show and they will show you everything you need to watch next week and the week after. And it just is a continuing cycle of they lure you in and they take your attention, they take your time, they take your focus. And so ultimately speaking, TV is its own regenerative process to get you to stay watching TV.
And with the commercials, sometimes you can't skip commercials, even with Direct TV or DVRs. Um, you're spending money on stuff you don't need, but you have to have because they piqued your interest while you were watching your favorite show from the couch.
So with the topic of the day is focus, and I jotted down some of the different ways that we can have focus and hopes that we can change the focus of our audience from this bad thing that's only going to create short-term fun to this great thing that's going to create health and wealth for retirement. That'd be a great name for a podcast, Rick, I think.
You
Health.
think? Well, it's amazing that we came up with that all on our own.
It is amazing. It is amazing. So the first thing is we have there are three types of focuses in terms of time. There's we can focus on our past, we can focus on our present, or we can focus on what we want in the future. So talk about money and how, whether you focus on your current situation or your future, how that what might impact the person's bank account and wallet.
It's interesting. I'm going to quote Dave Ramsey, who is a financial educator. I don't agree with a lot of the things he says, but one of the big things I took from him is if you live today like no one else, later you can live like no one else. So it's being disciplined now, focusing on what you want out of life, not what you have to have right now, but what you want 20, 30 years down the road. But staying focused on that, having a plan is important. And a plan is really where it comes down to, because if you just have an idea in your head, an idea or a dream without a plan is just a wish, and it's likely not going to happen. But if you have a definite plan with timelines and milestones that you want to hit, a certain dollar amount of savings or a certain passive income from a business, it's more likely to happen because you have something to work forward to, or work toward, instead of just this nebulous, oh, I want to have more money. I want to have $20,000 in the bank by the end of the year. There's a difference of I want to have more money next year versus I'm going to have $50,000 saved up in my private banking account by the end of December 2025. So being specific and then breaking that down into smaller mini goals to keep me focused on what I'm doing, what I'm trying to accomplish. So if I have a goal of saving so many thousands of dollars a year, I break it down to monthly and then weekly, and then I'm less likely to go below $10 at Starbucks because I haven't hit my goal yet. So it's important to have that kind of focus and breaking it down to achievable daily even steps to take.
And so when it comes to calories and exercise, I think the same thing is really, really true. If you look at yourself in the mirror and don't like what you see and you focus on how bad that makes you feel, you're probably going to leave the mirror and go eat crap food and not be inspired to exercise. But if you look at the mirror and see a better vision of yourself, if you will, I'm often reminded that there's so many different images of a kitten sitting looking in the mirror and seeing a lion, which is why I wore the shirt I have on for those of you who get to watch this. The idea is you can look at your disappointments and focus on them, or you can look at your disappointments and decide how you're going to end them and be better in the future. And one of the other things I talked about past, so many of us believe our past equals our future. So if I was born into the wrong income range, if I was born in the wrong neighborhood, if I was born in whatever I perceive as being wrong, woe is me. If I focus on that, I'm going to recreate that not only for me, but for my children. It is very important that you understand that your past does not equal your future unless you focus on the past and how unfair things are for you, or these people won't let me do this, or this won't let me happen. Then you never move forward to create the future that you want.
It's easy to get, yeah, right, Mark, you're really on target there. It's easy to get stuck in, I can't change my life because this happened or that happened or I did this. Even people who go
Hey,
to
Rick, I just want to
jail,
say you're right, but you know what's even worse? When you believe you can't do it because of who you are, be it
yeah,
race, be it gender, be it age, be it whatever. When you say, I can't do it, that's even worse than we can't do it. Or, anyway, I decided to cut you off, but that was very important.
it's interesting. I know some people who have spent some time in jail. They did some bad things, but in jail they figured out what they wanted out of their life. And when you come out of prison, it's hard to get a job. So two of these people had to go create businesses for themselves so they could be productive, so they could live to their full potential. That they realized that who they are is not what they've done or what has happened to them. They're taking ownership. And so they got some real good mentorship while in prison and coming out of prison. So they realize that they don't have to stay stuck where they are. They can create something better because everybody in this world has really unlimited potential. We just rarely tap into it because we buy in those lies of, I'm fat, so I'm not going to be able to, succeed, or I'm ugly, or I'm the wrong race, or my wrong religion, or whatever that victim mentality is. You're going to stay stuck, and we really don't have to. We live in a country where if you have a dream, literally have a dream, and then put in some hard work, there is no ceiling to what you can accomplish,
So
whether it's
speaking,
emotional, physical, mental, financial. All those goals are possible if you get out of your own way and get out of your own head.
so speaking of prison, it's kind of an interesting thing. When we talk about focus, what we focus on actually becomes our prison. If we focus, especially when we're focusing on now in the past, we actually are going to do things to make sure that where we are now, we stay there. It's like our own self-created prison. And when people, based on race, gender, or any other characteristic, decide those people won't let me do this thing I want to do, we have put ourselves in our very own prison. Now, I'm going to say that prison is still better than the real prison that the states and the government puts us into, but it's still a prison.
I
And
actually wrote a book called Prison Break a couple of years ago about how we stay trapped in this mental prison, and we hold the keys. We just don't know that we have the keys that fit the lock and can open the door and walk out of that prison anytime we want to. Sometimes people get comfortable being stuck in a prison of their own in their own mind because that's what they know. That's their comfort factor. Their fear of failure, their fear of rejection keeps them living small in this prison. And that's not what we were designed to do. We were designed to explore and create and innovate. And people just get so hung up in being comfortable that they stay in that prison. And 30 years from now, you're going to wish you'd walked out the door 30 years ago.
yeah, and it's also very, very interesting that um if so I'm as you if you're in a podcast, maybe you can tell from our voices, but Rick is a white gentleman from Houston, Texas. I'm a black gentleman from the state of New York, and I meet so many people who are of various races and genders who actually have put themselves in a prison based on that. But here's the point: you actually empower the people you think are holding you back when you give in to that feeling. Like they have very little control over you, and you can do amazing things. But if you believe those people over there, whoever they may be, won't let you do it, they win and you lose because you're in the prison, and they don't even know that you're in the prison. They don't even get the benefit of it. So this is an interesting topic. We don't want to make this a thing on race, but ultimately there are so many people living their lives today in their own self-contained prison created by themselves. They hold the key. They don't seem to want to get off. Any
Well,
last?
again, I want to say one thing real here. It's that prison that we live in. It's thoughts of inadequacy, fear of failure, fear of success sometimes. But things have happened in the past that have hurt people. And I lead a recovery ministry, so I deal with people who've been injured in the past, whether it's child sexual abuse or a bitter breakup, an abusive husband, alcoholic parents, whatever. those things do add to our life, but they don't determine who we are, what we can do, unless we allow them to become extra locks on the doors of that mental prison. So you can break free. Most times it really takes people realizing that they are their own jailer, they are their own warden, and they can make changes and choices today and work towards what they really want in the future. But they don't have to stay stuck.
Yeah. And so that's past, present, future. That's a state of focus that will determine the future that we live. We're encouraging you, stop focusing in on your past, learn from it instead. Stop focusing in on now, choose the future, focus on what you want, and start doing things to go after it. And at the end of the episode, we'll talk about some things that you can start doing. But the next area of focus is, I believe it's success versus failure. If someone is sitting around feeling like they can't do something and they're going to fail if they try it, they're less likely to do it. If they do it, they'll do it weekly. And by weekly, I don't mean every week, I mean week. And ultimately, that's going to lead to you having the same life 10 years from now that you have now, because you're never going to fully do anything. So any thoughts on a person with a focus strictly on, oh, this is going to fail, it's not going to work, versus, yes, I can do this?
I think it was Will Rogers who said, if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're also right. So whatever you focus on is what your subconscious locks into. If I focus on what could go wrong or what bad things could happen, I'm going to see more of that. And it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy of, if I expect things to go badly, they're going to go badly. But if I focus instead on what if things go right, or what if what I want happens, it's not manifestation per se, but it's my mental outlook on my situation allows me to capitalize on the opportunities instead of focusing on the threats and using those threats or disappointments as a reason that I fail. And that self-fulfilling prophecy again is whatever I believe is more likely to happen, regardless of the external forces that are going on in my life. If I think it's going to go bad, it's going to go bad. If I think, hey, it's going to go great, it might still go bad, but it's more likely to be better than it would if I just focused on the negative.
I think this interesting thing about the success versus failure is, if you feel in your heart and in your gut that you are going to fail, you're less likely to even try. You're not going to get started. You'll never. And I meet a lot of people who say, "Oh, I'm not good. I'm not good at exercise," so they don't exercise. Now everybody who can walk can be good at exercise, because you can always go for a walk. There is no reason that a person who can walk can't walk for exercise. And I show my clients how to go from just simply walking to being able to run 5Ks and 10Ks. But the idea is that if you see the failure in your heart, chances are you'll never actually get started congruently.
It's interesting. As you know, and some of our listeners may know, I've had some back problems in the last several months and actually had spinal fusion surgery 3 weeks ago. And I haven't exercised. I've walked, but that's about it. Haven't been to the gym in probably 5-6 months. And so I went to the gym yesterday for the first time in a long time. And I am woefully out of shape. I couldn't bench what I usually bench. I couldn't curl what I usually curl. But, instead of just avoiding it and not going at all because, oh, no, I'm going to be out of shape, at least now I have a baseline of this is where I am. And I've got goals of where I want to be. So I put together a plan of going to the gym 3 times a week. Going to do, lift heavy these days, lift, high intensity these other days. But I have a plan to get where I want to go so I don't continue to lose muscle mass and continue to get weaker and more frail as I get older. Because at 53 years old, I'm not going to be able to do what I did when I was 43 or 33 or especially 23. But I can maintain what I have now and grow, strengthen the muscles I have by using them more and more efficiently as well, and getting up and doing some cardio as well. But knowing where you are is the first step. It's figuring out what you want to be differently in the future. And you and I have been through some training with Garrett J. White. If you set a goal of imagine exactly what you want in a year from now or 5 years from now, if anything is possible, what would your life be like? What would you want your life to be like? And even if you don't hit that specific goal, you're shooting for something more positive, more energetic, more useful, more intentional. So you're not circling the drain where you are. You're moving on a continuum of this is where I am, this is where I want to be. If you work on that goal, you'll wind up drifting towards where you want to be instead of staying stuck where you are. Because if you stay stuck where you are and focus on where you are, you're probably going to be less than where you are in the future. And a pilot friend of mine once told me, your attitude directs your altitude. He's a pilot. He flies airplanes. And so if a plane is flying and it's pointing up, the attitude, you're going to go higher and higher and higher. If your plane is pointing down, your attitude is downward attitude, you're going to eventually crash into the ground. So it's all about the mental focus and what you want, where you want to go in the future.
And the interesting thing is, if you have wherever you are today, and let's say you're focusing in on this fantasy of in the future of millions of dollars and phenomenal body, whatever it is, you're bound to be somewhere between where you are and there. But if your whole focus is on where you are, then no matter how far you go in the future, you're still going to be where you are right now. So dreaming high has the benefit of meaning you, even if you only make it halfway, you're still better off than if you don't make it at all. If you don't make any changes at all. So we talked about past, present, future. We talked about success versus failure. The last one that I really have is the idea of fun versus growth. The whole idea that tonight, I can go out and I can have a blast. I can spend tons of money, eat crappy food, not exercise today, and do everything and have a blast. And I'm going to wake up in the morning with an upset stomach, a headache, and broke. Or I can focus on my personal growth, which is how can I eat better? How can I create a budget to better manage my money? How can I treat my spouse better or my girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever better? How can I do things to improve my life and grow my income, my wealth, my muscles, whatever it is? Thoughts on that, Rick?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to go back to the food analogy. If you've ever been to McDonald's, it might taste good for a minute, but 10 minutes after you're done, you might be hungry again or wish you hadn't had that Big Mac, whatever. Instead of a crock pot meal, which takes 8 hours, but it comes out hearty, rich, delicious, satiating my hunger. It's comfort food that's sticks with you. Our actions need to be more the crock pot instead of the fast food drive-through, because putting in some effort, making some plans, working on where I want to make changes, it'll be so much more rewarding for years in the future instead of the immediate serotonin pop right now, and then you crash, and then you have to do something else differently the next day to feel better. It just you never get ahead of that need to buoy your emotions or buoy your how you feel, because it's all quick hit, easy, and short term results.
That's an interesting analogy, the fast food restaurant versus the crock pot. That's good, Rick. I appreciate that very much.
I,
Um,
I used to be a fat guy. I like food. What can I say?
well, well, I'm not a fat guy, but I still love food, but I still have to do it all things in moderation. So one of the ways that we can actually moder actually focus on the future is through something called moderation, where, okay, every now and then we all need to eat something that we don't, that's not good for us. And so we do it, but we do it in moderation and we do it seldomly, and we let that satisfy us. And as you do it, the need for it goes down. But I think the biggest way, and I think this is really, really true, is to understand that fun has a cost in the short term and in the long term. We're not saying you shouldn't have fun. We are saying when your focus is on how can I have fun today? How can I have fun tonight? You're like a 3-year-old. 3-year-olds literally have no restraint, right? They want everything they want. So I'm curious if you're listening to me right now, when you think about what you did last night, whatever that was it something a 3-year-old would do? something a 30-year-old would do, or something preparing for your 60s, because that's going to determine your life in so many ways.
It's interesting, when I was younger, I might have drank more than I should have,
You
and
might
I
have,
always
you're not sure. You just think you might
I
have.
might have. It's a little fuzzy, but
You don't
what
remember. You don't
I
remember
have
what they
friends now at my age. I can go out with friends or have a work function. I'll have one drink, and I enjoy that drink. I have a whiskey sour or an old fashioned or something. I'm a bourbon guy, but I see people my age that go have five or six, and the next day they feel terrible, and they're just beating up their liver. So it's like you said, moderation, whether it's a really good candy bar or a really good dessert or going and splurging on tickets to a pro ball game because who wants to drop $300 to go see a football game? Some people do it every week. I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. But every once in a while, it's good to have that release to get to make, because we want life to be enjoyable, but we also want life to be sustainable. And so if I party and blow money and don't exercise and eat crap, that eventually, like you said earlier, that bill becomes due, and it's the health and long-term financial security that I don't have anymore because I live for the moment, not for the future.
So I want to talk about really quickly, because this is health and wealth, but I want to talk about one of the sure ways that people can ruin their lives, and that is you're married and you have an affair. If there is anything that talks about focusing in on now, focusing in on the present, focusing in on fun versus long-term growth, it is when you cheat on your spouse. I know this is a health and wealth podcast, but cheating on your spouse is one of the things that, ultimately speaking, if you do it enough, you're going to get caught and you're going to end up in a divorce court. And some lawyer's going to make a lot of money. If you're a man, he's going to tell your wife what a horrible man you are, and he's going to try to take everything you have, and that will cost you so much in your future. And I've seen so many people who end up divorced end up becoming near alcoholics.
Yeah,
Because
the divorce, I'll tell you, from personal experience, it'll wreck your wealth and it'll wreck your health because you spend $40,000-$50,000 on a lawyer, and then you wind up paying either alimony or a divorce settlement. You have to sell the house and split the assets. All that financial stress translates into poor eating choices, alcoholism, drugs, because you need something to fill the void to make you feel better for all the physical stuff you've lost. And so it'll wreck your health and wealth for decades if you're not careful.
and it could do it for generations, because the impact. I was talking with my lady. So I'm in a relationship with a woman who comes from a intact family. Mom and dad stayed together their whole lives, and those three kids have grown up to be amazing adults. I, on the other hand, came from a broken home. My mom and dad seemed to get together only to create me, and I've felt that my entire life, and it becomes a generational thing. So the reason we're doing a health and wealth podcast, but talking about relationships, is because if you want to create generations of struggle, don't keep an intact family. And I don't say that with any pride at all, but I'm divorced. Rick's divorced. My mom and dad didn't really get together, and I can feel the impact between my life and the impact it's had on my life and my children and so forth and so on, versus this my lady whose family's been intact. It's just night and day. There's no denying it. If you want to create health and wealth for the future, create a stable family.
It's amazing how a stable family and a couple, um, husband and wife together, are much stronger than a husband and wife separately, because when one partner is struggling or has a weakness, the other partner generally complements that weakness and supports the other person. And yes, relationships take work, as does anything worthwhile. Takes some work and effort and some learning how to communicate, how to set goals, how to make a plan for your marriage, as well as your finances and your health. Just hoping things are going to turn out okay rarely works. So yeah, it's important to put in some work, because the long-term benefits far outweigh the upfront costs and the ongoing maintenance costs for your health and your wealth and your marriage and your spirituality and all those things.
So I just want to say, I think it goes beyond that. I think sometimes, I don't know how to say it. Sometimes people do really stupid shit, for lack of a better term. And when you do something really, really stupid, if I could get you to stop, and one of the things we're going to talk about as we bring this episode to an end is things you can do to start creating focus. But I can't, it's easy to say, I'm going to eat bad food. I'm going to better manage my budget. But you can do all those things properly. You screw up your marriage, you will set yourself back so many years in life, and you will set your children's lives back so many years in life that it's a darn shame. And if you, first of all, choose wisely who you're going to marry, choose wisely. And once you choose that person, be committed to them for life and them only. And I got one last thing to say, Rick, now that you comment on that before we get to the last part. The two most important decisions we will ever make in our lives is who we choose to have children with and who we choose to marry. And I hope that person is the same one. But once you have a child with someone, you are bound to them for life. Be they a good person or be they the biggest jerk ever. Be they a serial killer or be they a pastor at a growing church. And then the second thing is who you get married. There's no separating that once you do it. So, Rick, any last thoughts on focus before we give them ways to create better focus for the future?
Don't wait till January 1st to set some goals for your next year. Start today. Really sit down and take a hard look at yourself of where you are physically, where you are financially, where you are in a relationship, where you are with your relationship with God. If you're a Christian, great. I'm a Christian, Mark's Christian. If you're not, that's okay too. Where you are spiritually and where you are with your own mental health. Are you honest with yourself? Do you want to make changes with yourself? Do you want to improve some area of your life, whether it's learn a new language, learn a new skill set, to start a business, work out, whatever. Create a baseline today of this is where I am, and then set some goals where I want to be in 3 months, 6 months, and a year. So you have some goals to work forward toward, and then come up with a plan. Work with Mark for your health. Talk to somebody like me for a financial plan to get you where you want to be. But again, a goal without a plan is just a wish. It's important to know where you are now, and then it's more important to know where you want to be. If you worked limited by your circumstances, what do you want for you and your family and your kids and your grandkids?
So this could be a 10-hour podcast conversation. The idea of focus, it'll change your life when you change your focus, you change your life, basically, is what we're trying to tell you. And so if all you can focus on is the past or present, if all you're focusing on is your failure, potential for failure, if all you focus on is having fun today, you're going to have a miserable future. But if you change your focus to the future, your success, and growing, then you're going to have a great future. So here's some things I came up with, Rick, to help people create focus. I teach my clients a tool called stopping. And it is before you make any major decisions or any big decisions, just stop and really think about where is this going to lead me? What's the best thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen? And then make a decision based on that, not based on your positive expectation, but based on what can really happen. Stopping. It'll absolutely keep you from doing something really, really stupid.
That's a good plan. I call it playing the movie forward. If I'm going to if I'm forced to make a choice of where I want to spend money, is it going to be worthwhile 5 years from now, 5 months from now, 5 days from now? And if it's not going to be worthwhile more than 5 minutes from now, maybe I should spend my money elsewhere. Or making choices about what I eat and put in my body. Am I going to regret having this big, huge buffet meal immediately afterwards? Maybe I don't do that. So definitely figure out what the consequences, both immediate and long term, of any major life choice is by stopping and then playing that movie forward. And you may come up with a different decision after you take a step back and look at things from a bigger picture.
The second thing I came up with is the idea of writing down what you want, taking it from this dream in your head and put some stuff on paper. Garrett J. White taught us this whole process, and we've each tried to have our own process in helping people really decide the future they want and writing it down on paper. Now, today's kids don't know what writing on paper is, so type it in your computer, but somehow document the future you want and a plan to create it. Any thoughts on
Now,
that?
I got to say something real quick. While it's great to put it on, use a computer if that's what you're used to, if you write something on paper, it internalizes it because it involves all four cerebral cortexes of your brain, because you think it, your muscles write it, you see it and on the paper, and then you read it in your mind. So writing it on paper makes those neurons in your brain really grasp to what you're wanting out of life. So yeah, jot it down on a computer if that's what you're used to, but then put it on paper, because that involves more of your brain, and the more of your brain is involved, the more your subconscious will act to get you what you want.
Okay, cool. And then the next one is, who are you surrounded by? Are you surrounded by partiers? Because you're going to become a partier. Are you surrounded by, so a long time ago, I was married and I had a friend who used to always talk about his extramarital conquests. And one day I said to him, you know what? You do what you need to do, but I don't want to hear about them anymore. I'm trying to create a foundation with this woman, and I don't want to hear about your conquest because I don't want to be tempted to do those things. Listening to other people's fun and conquests that don't lead to their success or yours, stop listening to those people. Your circle of influence needs to be people who have a life that you want to create, not who have the life you have now. You can do that easily. Any thoughts on that, Rick?
Your network will determine your net worth. That means financially, emotionally, physically. The people you hang out with, you're going to be like the 5 people you hang out with most. So choose your friends wisely.
And so I got 2 more. One of them I'll go real quick. Have a dream. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. That's one of the most famous speeches of all time. What's your dream? You got to have a dream life and just do something. And then the last one, Rick, is take an action on creating your dream. You know, we started this podcast. This is episode number 7, I believe, 6 or 7.
7, I think.
And yes, this is episode 7. And the whole point is, if we never did episode 1, we'd never get to 7. We sucked in episode 1. It was absolutely awful. Now we're just bad, and we're getting better every week. So taking the action. So first of all, having a dream and taking action. We have a dream of being podcasters. We took action on it, and now here we are.
And the reason we're doing this is we've learned a lot in our lives of what not to do, what works and what doesn't work. We want to share those insights with people who may be suffering in the same position we used to be in, or dealing with some of the issues we deal with now. So take it for a grain of salt. We're not telling you what to do because we're hypocrites, because we've screwed up our lives, and we want better for our listeners.
That's true, Rick. We probably went over time today, but we can't emphasize enough the power of focus. Focus on what you want. Don't focus on what you have. Focus on your future. Don't focus on the fun you can have today. Focus on your success. Don't dwell on your past failures. Actions you can take immediately. Just stop and really focus on what you want. Write down some things, and Rick suggests you write with hand as opposed to computer. Your circle of influence determines so much, and have a dream and take a step towards that dream every day. Rick, last thoughts and final greetings, and how can someone talk to you if they want your help?
If somebody wants help with their finances, go to getmydebtfreedate.com. That's getmydebtfreedate.com. And we can sit down and have a 15-20 minute discovery call, figure out what you want in your life, where you are, where you want to get to, and then I can help you come up with a plan to make that happen.
And my last thought for the day is, listen, you never make the shots you don't take, which means, if that's a basketball analogy, that if you don't shoot, you can't possibly make a basket. Have a dream. Just go for something. And if you want to talk with someone about how to do that, I'm easily findable on social media, MarkDulaney. This is being recorded during Thanksgiving weekend, Rick, and my last thought, and I'll let you have the last word after that, is everybody hopefully has something in their lives they're thankful for.
I tell people that I work with all the time that we often overlook the really good things in life because of the noise and the bad things. So stop and take stock of the good things in your life every day.
Yep. So I had paused there, but ultimately speaking, take something good in your life and see how you can spread that to other parts of your life and multiply. And there's a saying that givers gain. That's a BNI saying, and I know they just do that to benefit themselves. But the bottom line is, you know, this is the time to be thankful. The people you're thankful for, let them know you're thankful. Rick, I'm thankful for you that we can do this
Mark, I
podcast
appreciate
together.
you. I'm thankful for you.
I'm thankful for my lady. I'm thankful for my children. I'm thankful for so much. I'm thankful for Jesus Christ, who is the head of my life. And I want you to take a moment and just whoever you're hearing, stop right now when this podcast is over and ask yourself the question, what am I thankful for? Let that be the start of your focus in creating the future that you want. Rick, your last words?
I will quote the master Shifu from Kung Fu Panda. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow's a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. So be present today. Be honest with yourself today so you can create a better tomorrow.
If you're listening, we try to keep it to a half hour. We owe you 10 minutes. We might give you 1 minute each episode. We like to talk. That's Rick.
That's Mark.
He's going to help you with your finances. I'm Mark. I want to help you with your health. Have a great day, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you back same time, same bad channel next week.
Have a good one.